Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We'll chant Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, verses 23 to 27.
उदासीनवदासीनः गुणैर्यो न विचाल्यते गुणा वर्तन्त इत्येव योऽवतिष्ठति नेङ्गते समदुःखसुखस्वस्थः समलोष्टाश्मकाञ्चनः तुल्यप्रिया प्रियो धीरः तुल्यनिन्दात्मसंस्तुतिः मानापमानयोस्तुल्यः तुल्यो मित्रारिपक्षयोः सर्वारम्भपरित्यागी गुणातीतः स उच्यते मां च यो व्यभिचारेण भक्तियोगेन सेवते सगुणान् समतीत्यैतान् ब्रह्मभूयाय कल्पते ब्रह्मणो हि प्रतिष्ठाहम् अमृतस्याव्ययस्य च शाश्वतस्य च धर्मस्य सुखस्यैकान्तिकस्य च.
In this chapter 14, we have come up to shloka number 24. Now the discussion from verse number 19 till 27 in this chapter is about gunatita. Gunatita means one who has gone beyond the gunas, one who has transcended the gunas, which means he's talking about an enlightened person. So the discussion is about gunatita. Now, Arjuna asked specifically in shloka number 21 about the gunatita. He said, I would like to know about the gunatita. What marks has he who has crossed over these three gunas? O Lord, the linga means the marks. How to identify a person who has gone beyond the gunas? What marks has he who has crossed over these three gunas? O Lord, O Krishna, what is his conduct? Achara. How does the person conduct in the world after enlightenment? And how does he go beyond these three gunas? How to go beyond these three gunas? These were the questions by Arjuna. So in 22, when Sri Krishna answers, he says, light, activity, and even delusion. Prakasham, pravrittim, and moham. These are the three Sanskrit words he uses, saying that an enlightened person does not hate when these gunas are present, nor longs for them when they are absent. Meaning, the way to rise above the gunas is by disassociation with these gunas and by identifying or associating with the Atma. The enlightened person is identified with Atma, and when that enlightened person is seen functioning in the world, obviously the enlightened person, when he is functioning or she is functioning, we have to bring in the gunas. Therefore, we said he or she will be predominantly sattvic. And of course, they will have rajas and tamas. The gunas, which will be part of the mind. See, this entire world is nothing but the manifestation of Prakriti, which is Maya, which is Trigunatmika. And this Trigunatmika has manifested as both the microcosm and the macrocosm. So in the microcosm, it manifests as this Satva, Rajas, Tamas, gunas internally in the mind, and it is the same thing that is manifested in the external world also, which is also can be classified as Satva, Rajas, and Tamas. So this entire universe is nothing but the manifestation of Satva, Rajas, Tamas. So when an enlightened person is seen functioning in the world, there is gunas functioning in that person also. But to those gunas, the enlightened person remains disassociated. In fact, while we try to go beyond the gunas also, we have to understand this and disassociate with the gunas. An enlightened person is completely disassociated. The presence or absence of the gunas makes no difference to that person. This is the first point he makes. Then he says, in verse number 23, he who seated like unconcerned, udasina vat. So we said the word vat is very important. Udasina means one who is unconcerned. Udasina vat means one who is like unconcerned. So, see, we have to understand this world from two different angles. From the absolute angle, this world is illusion. But from the limited angle, it is relative reality, or what we can call as transactional reality. So, from the absolute angle, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. From the absolute angle, Brahman alone is real. Jagat Mithya, meaning it is unreal. In fact, Mithya word, you cannot say it's real, you cannot say it's unreal, you cannot say it's partly real, partly unreal. Therefore, we say Maya. It is illusion. It is dependent on Satya. It is dependent on Brahman. Right? All this we have discussed. So now, this Mithya Prapanja, when you are in that Mithya Prapanja, the individual, Jiva, when the enlightened soul is expressing or seed expressing, that is also part of Mithya only, no? The microcosm. So that microcosm, he says, the enlightened soul remains like one unconcerned, because that person has the knowledge now. From the transcendental reality point of view, this whole world is Mithya. But at the transactional point of view, it has a certain value. So that much importance he gives. So he is unconcerned in the sense he or she is not indifferent, like a tamasic person. So we have to differentiate between these two words called indifferent and unconcerned. Therefore, I'm explaining all this. So an enlightened person is not indifferent to the world, because it is taken like that. That's why a lot of people misunderstand spirituality and they don't want to take to it. Therefore, this clarification is essential. So an enlightened person is not indifferent to the world, but an enlightened person is unconcerned. It is only real from the transactional point of view. So therefore, he gives that much importance to it. Not more, not less. That is what the word unconcerned means. And he sees the gunas functioning, nothing else. Right? It's the prakriti that is manifesting as gunas and functioning. Atma is a non-doer. Atma is merely an enlightening factor. Atma is merely an enlivening factor, merely enlivens. And in the presence of the consciousness or Atma, pure consciousness or Atma, the gunas function. So this entire universe is nothing but manifestation of the gunas. Gunas are functioning. This already has been discussed earlier also. In the third chapter also it says, Guna guneshu vartante iti matva anasajjate. The gunas are functioning everywhere. Sattvic people, or those who are predominantly sattvic, are attracted to sattvic environment. Similarly, rajasic to rajasic environment, tamasic to tamasic environment. The gunas identify with gunas and they are functioning. So this clearly an enlightened person sees. And having seen this, what happens? He is rooted firmly in the reality. Being rooted firmly in the reality, He is not moved by the functionings of the gunas. Remains unmoved, meaning the gunas do not influence the person. Gunas have lost the capacity to influence the person. In our case, that is not what happens. Till you get completely enlightened, you get moved. The gunas affect us. Accordingly, we get affected. We are conditioned. We are conditioned by the gunas. In the case of an enlightened person, he remains completely detached. I think in this context, we also talked about that movie, Beautiful Mind. I don't remember whether I spoke, but something tells me we spoke. Even if we did not speak, it doesn't matter. In that movie, Beautiful Mind, it is a real story of a professor who ultimately went on to get the Nobel Prize. Now, he is a schizophrenic. He doesn't realize it till a point, and then later on he understands. Then he takes the medication properly, and he finally, for his research, even gets Nobel Prize. When he finally gets the Nobel Prize and he's walking out after the whole ceremony is over, somebody is asking him, hey, you used to imagine certain characters, because he's a schizophrenic. Are those characters still existing? He says, yes, they are there. But I have learned to ignore them. I just ignore them. In the sense, when a Sthita Prajna, enlightened soul, is functioning in this world, he sees the gunas functioning and remains unconcerned, does not allow those gunas to affect. Like that professor who is now got the Nobel Prize, he still has that problem. But those imaginations keep coming in his head. He imagines certain characters which are not actually existing. They're not existing, but in his mind they're existing. Earlier, it used to affect him. He used to believe them. He used to go along with them. In the case now, he is understood. He doesn't get affected by that. He ignores, though they are continuing. Similarly, a Mahatma, the world is functioning. The gunas will be there. Externally, internally, all these things will happen. So, he remains unconcerned. So, this is what he said in 24. In 23. In 24, he says, when these gunas function in the world, they bring about certain effects, isn't it? So, the effects do not affect him. The effect of gunas upon that person, he talks about. He says, he to whom joy, sorrow, rooted in the self, he who rooted in the self, swastaha, joy, sorrow, clod of earth, stone, gold, he remains same. To whom clod of earth, stone and gold are same, to whom pleasant and unpleasant are alike, the wise to him, much censure and praise are alike. So what he's saying is, when these gunas function in the world, they manifest as material, physical, emotional, intellectual world, isn't it? So the material world, what are the differences? Clod of earth, rock or stone, and then gold. Right? This is how the gunas are manifested. These are all nothing but the gunas only. The gunas are manifested as rock, gold, and earth. Now, we who are not enlightened, we have tremendous value for these things. And we get affected by these effects of gunas. We get moved, but he remains unperturbed. He remains calm, balanced. This is the character of a guna-atita. A guna-atita doesn't get affected. He remains same, balanced. So, does it mean that he doesn't understand the value of them? Now, like we discussed, sometimes earth is more valuable, stone is more valuable, isn't it? Now, rock or gold is more valuable. Stone, you take the example for stone, diamond. So, let's put it like this: earth, diamond, and gold. The value keeps changing. So, now, Once upon a time, maybe gold was more valuable, then diamond was more valuable, now earth is more valuable. Sometimes, compared to certain lands, gold is more valuable. These things keep on changing. Does it mean that an enlightened soul doesn't know their value? Of course, he may know. She may know the value. But in spite of knowing those values, he gives them the same value. How is it possible? What does it mean to give the same value? He is able to give the same value because he sees it from a different angle. What is the angle in which he sees? He sees as eternal and ephemeral angle. From eternal and ephemeral angle, when you view the world fits into ephemeral, not eternal. Isn't it? Whatever it may be, however valuable it may be in the world, they all fall under ephemeral category. In the book Vedanta Treatise, Swamiji uses a very interesting phrase. It is, it's important we recollect that in this context. Remember that in this context. He says, they are all precious trifle. From the absolute point of view, it is trifle. From the relative point of view, it may be precious. Precious in the sense, it's relatively less available. Isn't it? Gold has gone deep into the earth. Still we go dig and bring it out. So, relatively less. Supposing there is too much gold everywhere, will you have value for it? Because it's relatively less in its presence in the world, it has value. And there are other qualities as well. So, the point here is, however much the value may be for a particular material object in this world, it falls under the category of ephemeral. Once, as per the story of Ramayana, Hanumanji was presented with a mala. He put it to his ears. He didn't say Ram, he threw it. Similarly, how does the balance come about? The balance will come about when you understand that all of them fall under the category of ephemeral. Firstly, they'll change. You can change. Your mind can change. Something that is essentially falling in the category of change can change anytime. Isn't it? Now, we keep seeing the newspapers every day. The gold rate has gone up. Gold rate has come down. It keeps changing. It has fallen so much. It has increased so much. That is happening on a daily basis. Right? So, as far as a Mahatma is concerned, who is enlightened, who's gone beyond the gunas, it makes no difference because it comes under ephemeral category. Therefore, he views them same. Samaloshtashma kanchanaha. Then, when you come to physical, the gunas manifesting in the world sometimes is bringing pleasantness to the body, sometimes bringing unpleasantness to the body. Okay. Now, the temperature in Delhi now is very hot. Right? So, due to the heat, sometimes it may be very unpleasant. And even in that, if the power is also cut, then it adds to the unpleasant feeling. So that unpleasantness will be felt by that person. A person is not a piece of wood. Enlightened person is not a piece of wood. You understand? The enlightened person will also be going through that unpleasant feeling at the physical level or pleasant feeling when it is conducive. But to both unpleasantness, he remains alike. And the same way, mental level, certain experiences bring joy, certain experiences bring sorrow. This happens to the enlightened person also. This he already said in the Sthatha Prajna portion. Dukkeshu anudvignamanaha Sukeshu vigata spruhaha vitaraga bhayakrodaha stitadir muni ruchyate. This is the shloka we studied in Siddha Prajna portion in the second chapter when he talked about profile of a perfect human being. Dukkeshu anudvignamana. Sukeshu vigata spruhaha. Meaning in dukkha and sukha, he is neither affected nor excited. Meaning what? Balanced. Same thing William Wordsworth says in the poem Ladomia. When Protesilaus is talking about heaven, he says, calm pleasures and majestic pain there abides. Meaning, when you evolve, you will be calm in pleasures and majestic in pain. Which means what? Balanced. That's what he's talking about. Pleasant and unpleasant, joy, sorrow, you will be same. Similarly, at the intellectual level, there are people who will praise you to skies. There are people who will criticize you, censure you, like anything. Even during Krishna's time, Sri Krishna's time, Shishupala was there. So many other people were there criticizing Sri Krishna. At the same time, there are so many people glorifying him. So this will be there at the intellectual level. Now, somebody else's opinion affects us a lot because they are intellectually evaluating us. And if we are stuck at that level, their valuation about us affects us. In the case of a Mahatma, it doesn't affect. So with reference to the effect of the gunas also, the Mahatma remains balanced. And that is what he's talking about. See, once you are, and that's why he says swastha. The word that swastha word is very important. Rooted in the self. So Mahatma is one who is rooted in the self. Swastha. That person is associating with the Atma self 100% at all given situations. Once you enlighten, you remain in that state forever. Even though you are seen manifesting in this world and functioning. So you remain unperturbed, without any disturbance, balanced. So with reference to the functions, whether the presence and absence doesn't affect. Functioning doesn't affect. The effects doesn't affect. That is the guna atita linga. That is the guna atita character. And he goes into a little more detail about it in 25. He talks about the character, the conduct of a guna atita in 25. Let's get on to shloka number 25.
मानापमानयोस्तुल्यः तुल्यो मित्रारिपक्षयोः सर्वारम्भपरित्यागी गुणातीतः स उच्यते.
Who is said to be a guna atita? So he is saying here, he is said to be a guna atita who's crossed over the gunas. He is said to have crossed over the gunas, who alike in honor and dishonor, alike to friend and foe. Friend and foe is an external matter, and honor and dishonor is an internal matter. Honor and dishonor happens within you. Isn't it? Somebody honoring you, dishonoring you, goes and affects you or doesn't affect you, which happens at the internal level. And somebody is a friend or a foe, this is at the external level. Now, when he says friend and foe here, another important thing we need to understand is, Gunatita doesn't consider anybody as a foe. Understand? But there will be lot of foes. People may consider him as foe or friend. Because we have already studied about a bhakta. There what did he say? Bhakta means enlightened soul only. The jnani bhakta is what he's talking about. In the 12th chapter, he gives 35 qualities of a bhakta. I hope you remember that. In the next chapter, he talks about, 13th chapter, he talks about 20 qualities of a jnani. It is same. When he says bhakta there, he is talking about jnani bhakta. In the 7th chapter, he gives 4 types of bhaktas. Artharthi, Artha, Jignasu, Jnani. Artharthi means one who is interested in the wealth. He goes to God for wealth. Artha means one who goes to God for solace. Jignasu means one who goes to God for out of curiosity. And Jnani means one who goes to God for the sake of God. And one who has become God, meaning one who is enlightened, one who is merged with the divinity. That is Jnani Bhakta. So that Jnani Bhakta is nothing but Jnani. And what is that he says? He says, Adveshta Sarva Bhutana Maitra Karuna Evacha. He hates no being and is friendly with everyone. That is a Jnani. That is an enlightened soul. Guna Tita, whichever way you want to put it. So therefore, in the world outside, there are certain people who consider him as friend. There are certain people who consider him as foe. This is at the external level. And some people will be honoring him, some people will be dishonoring him. And that may have certain effects at the internal level. So with reference to external and internal, he is now talking about the Jnani character. He says, alike in honor and dishonor, alike to friend and foe. Both at the subtle level and at the gross level, he remains the same, balanced, calm. Alike, you consider me friend, you consider me foe, doesn't matter. I see only the Atma in you. Of course, I understand the gunas functioning in you. It may be sattvic, it may be rajasic, it may be tamasic. In spite of all the gunas, in and through the gunas, I go through the gunas and see the Atma. Therefore, I identify with that. Therefore, I am able to see both the friend and foe alike. Similarly, because of your gunas, you may be honoring me or dishonoring me. But still, I don't allow that to affect me. I still remain alike in both the situations because my identification is with Atma, not with gunas. If I identify with my gunas, then I have to be concerned about your evaluation. Isn't it? When I am not identifying with my gunas, I am identifying with the Atma. How will it affect me? Therefore, he says, he is alike to both honor and dishonor, friend and foe, external and internal level, he remains same, alike, doesn't get affected, balanced, calm. Then this person has gone beyond the intellectual, emotional, and physical personality and has reached the inner core, the Atma, the self, which is nothing but Ananda Swarupa. Isn't it? When we talk about Atma, we talk about it as what? Satchit Ananda Swarupa. So, the person has gone beyond the intellect, the mind, the body, or put it like this, body, mind and intellect, is gone beyond all the Panchakoshas, Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha, and has reached the core, Atma, become enlightened. So then he is realized the truth that his essential nature or her essential nature is Ananda, Paripurna, complete. Isn't it? As a result, the person is not feeling any sense of separation or desire to feel complete. I know that I am complete. It's not that I have any doubts that I'm incomplete. Only when I think I'm incomplete, then to make myself complete, my thoughts will run towards the world, which will flow as desires. When I know that I'm complete, that is what we call as jnani, no? So a jnani who knows the paripurnatvam of the self has no sense of incompleteness. As a result, no thoughts running into the world flowing as desires. to fulfill. And when the desire is fulfilled, we get excited. And when the desires are not fulfilled, we remain agitated, going through these states of happiness intercepted with sorrow. This is the condition of the unenlightened person, ajnani. But here we are talking about a jnani. So the jnani is remaining complete, paripurna, ananda, not wanting to find any happiness because he or she is the happiness. So therefore, the person has no condition to take to any work. Are you with me? So that is why he says, relinquishing all undertakings, sarvarambha parityagi. Now this sarvarambha parityagi needs to be understood correctly. Why do we take, ajnani take to work? Ajnani doesn't know. What is ajnani ignorant about? His own self, her own self, which is paripurna, complete. He doesn't know that, she doesn't know that. So the person imagines this individual ego as himself or herself, which is incomplete because it's finite and incomplete. The thoughts run towards the world, which flows as desires, and is bound to a condition to fulfill those desires. And you cannot fulfill your desires all the time. There will be a lot of desires unfulfilled. Some desires get fulfilled, some desires remain unfulfilled. Therefore, constantly remains agitated and continuously running in the world, undertaking something or the other to feel that happiness. Now, that pressure is not there for a enlightened person, complete man or a woman. I'm afraid to use this word complete man because this is the slogan in the advertisement, isn't it? For clothing brand, Raymond's, a complete man. Now we are talking about enlightened person as a complete person. A person who understands that the original nature of me is paripurnatva and is experiencing that. Being in that paripurnatvam, there is no compulsion to take any work, undertake any work. And there is no attitude that I am doing also. Because the person has full knowledge about himself, the Atma, which is non-doer. So we generally talk in the world, no? What do you do for a living? I do carpentry, I do dancing, I do this, I do that. It's for a living we do, for fulfilling our desires. No such thing exists in the case of a Mahatma. This is what we need to understand when he talks about relinquishing all undertakings. Relinquishing all undertakings, when you take it literally, means the person will take to no work. He will not work in the world, remain a lazy fellow. That is what we think. No. And he says relinquishing all undertakings means the thought that I am doing, that is not there. And also there is no pressure because of which the person takes to work. The person takes to work out of love, out of fullness. We have to understand this. We all run after the work in the world. We undertake work to find happiness. An enlightened soul doesn't undertake work to find happiness. The enlightened soul expresses the nature which manifests as action in the world, work in the world, out of happiness. There's a difference. We work in the world to find happiness. The enlightened person works in the world out of happiness, out of love, out of no compulsion. This is what we need to understand. Being balanced within, and paripurna, complete. He is not expressing action propelled by desires, but the actions of an enlightened person expresses out of pure bhakti or love, identification with the universe, simply allowing the gunas to function. So therefore he says, relinquishing all undertakings, relinquishing the feeling that I am undertaking work, I am the doer, I'm doing this to fulfill my desires and find happiness. No such thing is there in the Atma. Such a person is said to have crossed the gunas. Now, how to know if I have crossed the gunas or not? If there is pressure or not? That is the point. You know, I'm reminded of the play Julius Caesar by Shakespeare. In that, the day the conspirators have come together, planned to murder Caesar, when he goes to the Senate, there's somebody who's come to take him to the Senate and is ready to go. That time, his wife is saying, don't go. I dreamt a lot of bad omens and all that. So I don't want you to go. I request you not to go. He said, what nonsense. I will go. And then she somehow persuades him. He says, okay, chalo, for her sake, I will not go. And he says, okay, I'm not coming. And these people are disturbed because they have already planned to kill him. So he says, what should I tell them? Should I tell them that Caesar listened to his wife and said, no, I'm not coming? For which Caesar says, Caesar has no compulsion to give any answer to anybody. It is Caesar's will. King can say, today, chutti baba. Sabko chutti hai. He doesn't have to explain to anybody because he is not acting out of whims and fancies. He weighs the pros and cons and sees the context and he thinks this is dharma, he will do it. See, he owes no explanation to anybody. That's what it means. So, the same way, the person takes to work like duck to water with no pressure, no stress, no strain. So, there is no feeling that I am undertaking this work. We all have that. We all have the sense of indispensability. And that is sitting on our head. That is what is giving us stress. So how do you know? What is the best way to know? What is the conduct? With no compulsion, happily getting into work. They were doing it, whatever may be the outcome, people honoring, dishonoring, a lot of people may turn foes, may turn friends. See, when we start functioning in the world, many times what happens when you have to establish dharma, sometimes you may take certain actions which may go against your own relatives and friends. So the so-called relatives and friends may turn and become foes. And those people who are looking at you as foes, suddenly seeing this may turn your friends. All this is possible. Because your thing is identification with the Atma, with awareness of the self, and paripurnatvam, completeness within, you go about expressing your nature. And it will always be aligned with dharma. This is something we need to understand. Many times in our classes, we have pointed this out to you. Because if an enlightened person is merely allowing the gunas to express, then is it possible that the enlightened person can do something wrong? See, enlightened person, when we say, is functioning out of awareness and paripurnatva, completeness. Remember this. With awareness, you can do no wrong. For this, to explain this, we have given the example. When you take pictures using the old camera, you used to use a film roll. The film roll used to be called as negative. And the negative, if it is exposed to light, it cannot be developed. So after taking pictures, about 36 or so, you can click. And then you take the film roll carefully, put it inside a box and give it to the studio. and in the studio they take it to the dark room and develop it. So negatives can only be developed in darkness. Once it's exposed to light, it cannot be developed. So even though due to prarabdha, within you there may be tamas, rajas and satva, you being predominantly sattvic, though there may be little rajas and tamas, and you expressing the gunas, you cannot go wrong because your gunas are exposed to awareness now. Please understand this. Out of awareness and completeness you are going about. Therefore, it will always be aligned with dharma. So that person will definitely be functioning in the world, acting, which means you cannot take this line literally, relinquishing all undertakings. Relinquishing all undertakings means he resigned the job, he stops. Oh, you are conducting Vedanta classes, then obviously you cannot be enlightened. Because enlightened means you should shut up. Because it says relinquishing all undertakings. No. The person may be found in any kind of work. Like Sri Krishna was found on the battlefield. You understand? Enlightened person can be anywhere. Can be conducting Vedanta class, or being a priest in the temple, or being a Kshatriya on the battlefield, or being a trader in the business area, or being a service-oriented person in the world outside. Scriptures go to the extent of saying he can even be a butcher, functioning as a butcher, selling meat. It goes to that extent. So meaning, they are seen working in the world with no sense of undertaking because there is nothing to complete. So it's not that they have taken to those undertakings out of the sense of completing. There's no pressure. Purely out of love, and they're expressing their nature, and their expression is soaked in the awareness of the self. Therefore, their undertakings will always be aligned to dharma. This is what we need to understand. Such a person is said to have crossed over the gunas. Are you taking to work? Are you propelled by desires or completeness is the question. If you are propelled by completeness, you are a gunatita. If you are propelled by incompleteness, then work is a means for you. For an enlightened person, work is not a means to find happiness. You understand? That's why earlier in the 3rd chapter, Sri Krishna told Arjuna, in these 3 worlds, I have nothing to do, man. Yet I engage myself in action. These are Sri Krishna's words in the 3rd chapter of the Gita. Though I have nothing to do in these 3 worlds, yet I engage myself in action. What does it mean? Meaning, the enlightened person have nothing to do or not to do. See, not only doing for us is out of compulsion. For us, not doing is also out of compulsion many times. Isn't it? I hate some actions because it's not what I desire. So I don't want to do it. So there is I don't want to do. What is that? Kartrutva. Not doing also can be out of kartrutva, doership. Doing also can be out of kartrutva. So when it is not doing out of kartrutva, it is still doing from the spiritual angle. The doership is still there. So you will be, therefore, having, effect for that. So in the case of an enlightened person, even the doing is not underlined by doership. So there is no sense of doership. There is only sense of completeness, and with total awareness, the person functions in the world. That is called guna atita. and was gone beyond the gunas. The gunas are not propelling the action. The awareness and completeness is what is there behind the action. In the case of a Mahatma, this is a very important thing to understand. No, Sarva Arambha Parityagi. He has nothing to do, yet engages in action. So, dynamically, you will see Mahatmas engaging in their actions according to their nature. But in their area, out of their own bhakti and love, identification, they function. That's all he's saying. Alike in honor and dishonor, alike to friend and foe, relinquishing all undertakings, he is said to have crossed over the gunas qualities. So, how do you know who is a guna atita? When there is no doership, when there is no compulsion to act, yet acting out of awareness and completeness, then you are a guna atita. Next sloka.
मां च यो व्यभिचारेण भक्तियोगेन सेवते सगुणान् समतीत्यैतान् ब्रह्मभूयाय कल्पते.
He says here that a guna atita is he when a person serves me, he who serves me, and he who serves me with unswerving yoga of devotion, he having duly crossed these gunas is fit for becoming Brahman. See, in this shloka, he says, the person, how does a person cross the gunas? He says, to cross the gunas, you have to follow the sadhana. You have to follow the sadhanas. What are the sadhanas? Karma, bhakti, jnana. There is nothing else. You have to do karma, bhakti, jnana as yoga. So he says, he who serves me, which refers to karma yoga, with unswerving yoga of devotion, referring to bhakti, he having duly crossed these gunas. So you may feel he is only talking about karma yoga and bhakti yoga. What about jnana yoga? So he says, go back to sloka number 19. In Swamiji's commentary also he mentions this. We go back to sloka number 19, because in 19 he said, when the seer perceives no agent other than the gunas qualities and knows the higher beyond the gunas, he attains my being, which is nothing but jnana yoga. What does he say in verse number 19? When the seer perceives no agent other than the gunas qualities and knows the higher beyond the gunas, meaning what? Prakriti alone functions in the world, and self, Atma, is the Purusha, which is remaining just as a Sakshi, witness enlivening. What is that? It is nothing but jnana. So, verse number 19 refers to jnana yoga. And he said, there he talked about jnana yoga, and he said, having crossed over these gunas qualities, the dweller in the body is completely freed from the birth, death, old age, and pain arising from the body and attains immortality. This is what he says in verse number 20. So, in 19, he talked about jnana yoga. Through jnana yoga, finally you attain self-realization, which is what is called as guna atita state. You go beyond gunas, you become guna atita. And if you have to come to jnana yoga, you should do karma yoga and bhakti yoga, because karma yoga purifies your mind and bhakti yoga brings about single pointedness to your mind. Bhakti yoga or upasana yoga, however you want to call it, right? So when you function in the world, physically, mentally and intellectually, in the spirit of yoga, practicing karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, which are the sadhanas, then you cross over the gunas. Through karma, you attain chitta shuddhi. Karma yoga, you attain chitta shuddhi. Through bhakti yoga, upasana yoga, you attain chitta ekagrata, single pointedness of the thought. And then through jnanam, you get established in the direction of the self. You become completely detached from the world and develop mumukshatva, 100% mumukshatva. Mumukshatva means burning desire to liberate. And then you finally liberate. So he says, he who serves me with unswerving yoga of devotion. So therefore he talked about jnana yoga there in 19 and realization in 20. Then immediately Arjuna asked in 21, please talk to me about guna atita. So till the last sloka he talked about guna atita. Now he comes back to where he left in 19 and 20. So he says, you have to follow karma yoga, bhakti yoga and qualify for jnana yoga and then do jnana yoga and then cross the gunas. Because only with jnanam do you develop that capacity to be disassociated from the gunas completely. Because you now associate with Atma, because you started seeing the self. Right? So therefore he says such a person having duly crossed these gunas is fit for now becoming Brahman. Meaning that person is now qualified to become Brahman. Realize the self, enlightened. Now what is that state of enlightenment? He talks about it in the 27th shloka, giving few pointers of Brahman. Because Brahman cannot be defined. Please remember this. Brahman is beyond intellect. How can you use the intellect and define Brahman? How can the finite capture the infinity? It is not possible. It is not possible for the finite to capture the infinity. Therefore, the scriptures don't give definitions of Brahman. Scriptures give pointers of Brahman. So that he talks about in sloka number 27, which is the last sloka of this chapter. Let's chant that.
ब्रह्मणो हि प्रतिष्ठाहम् अमृतस्य व्ययस्य च शाश्वतस्य च धर्मस्य सुखस्यैकान्तिकस्य च.
For I am the abode of Brahman. Sri Krishna is now talking here as what? As Ishvara, identifying with the self, not as Mr. Krishna. So he says, I am that Ishvara, the Purusha, the Brahman. So he says, I am the abode of Brahman. Meaning, the true I within each one of us is essentially Brahman. And what is that? It is immortal, Amrita. Body is born, body dies. Brahman has nothing to do with the body. Atma has nothing to do with the body. Therefore, the Atma is immortal. It is neither born when the body is born. It neither perishes nor perishes when the body perishes. It's neither born when the body is born nor perishes when the body perishes. This body is something that is born, something that dies. Atma or Brahman has nothing to do with it. It is immortal. Even the world manifests, macrocosm manifests and goes into laya and manifestation. But Brahman remains. So therefore he says, I am the abode of Brahman. I is the real Brahman, not what you think yourself to be. And it is immortal. Today you are considering yourself to be mortal, but you are actually immortal. And then immutable means changeless. Avyaya. Avyaya means immutable. Avyaya also means unmanifest. Brahman is the ultimately speaking, Brahman is the absolute unmanifest. Relative unmanifest is vasanas. Vasana are also unmanifest. But absolute unmanifestation is Brahman. And it is unchanging. This world is nothing but constantly changing phenomenon. Another name for the world is change. Isn't it? Samsarati iti samsara. That which constantly keeps revolving, changing. So another name for the world is change. So he says, the immutable substratum of this change is Brahman. So you reach that when you go beyond gunas, you identify with the substratum, not with the manifested world. And in that manifested world, this body mind intellect complex, all these are not unchanging, these are all changing. Only Brahman is unchanging, immutable. So a change is possible to be recognized with reference to a changeless point, reference. And that changeless reference is you, is what is the pointer indicating. And then he says Shashvata, Shashvata Dharma, eternal being. That Brahman is eternal, permanent, not transitory. Everything in this world is passing, fleeting. Whereas Brahman is absolute. It is permanent. It is not ephemeral. It is eternal, upon which this entire universe is superimposed. So he says Shashvata Dharma, that eternal being. And it is Aikantika Sukha, absolute bliss, not the bliss or joy that we experience when we fulfill a desire. When you fulfill a desire, you get some pleasure. But that pleasure is taken away. It is only there for a while. It's temporary. It is intercepted by sorrow. Whereas the bliss that you experience when you go beyond the desire and become one with Brahman, realizing your true nature, realizing the true identity of the I, you experience that Aikantika Sukha, which is absolute bliss, which is not interrupted bliss. It is uninterrupted bliss that you experience. That's all he says. For I am the abode of Brahman, immortal, immutable, eternal Dharma, being, and absolute bliss. And this is the phala. This is the benefit you get by going beyond the gunas. By doing the sadhana of karma, bhakti, jnana, you get more and more established in the knowledge of the self. By identifying with the knowledge of the self, by associating with the knowledge of the self more and more, you start disassociating with the gunas and its manifestation. Therefore, the function and the effect of the gunas starts reducing with reference to you. Then when you finally liberate, enlightened by going beyond the gunas, they cannot have any effect upon you. You remain completely balanced, functioning in the world with no sense of indispensability, propelled by completeness and awareness, knowing very well that you are immortal, immutable, Shashvata eternal being, and experiencing the absolute bliss which is within. You have become one with that Ananda Swarupa. You have now become that enlightened person going beyond the gunas. So he said these are the sadhanas which will take you to the guna atita level, going beyond the gunas. You experience this, which is the benefit, which is the fruit. So with that, he completes the complete discussion of the gunas in this chapter. So let's conclude the chapter.
ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासूपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे गुणत्रयविभागयोगो नाम चतुर्दशोऽध्यायः।
Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat, with which we begin and we end also, because it's auspicious. Everything is that reality which pervades the three states of consciousness, which is what the symbol Om represents. The consciousness that pervades the waking, dream, and deep sleep state and exists beyond that is what is represented by Om. And that is Sat. Everything else is Asat. And Om Tat Sat means that we start anything chanting Om Tat Sat or just Om, and we conclude by saying Om Tat Sat. So every conclusion of every chapter you'll see Om Tat Sat. Then what does he say? Thus, in the Upanishads of the glorious Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is nothing but the summary of the Upanishad, gist of Upanishad. The science of eternal and ephemeral. What does Bhagavad Gita discuss? It discusses the science of ephemeral and eternal. It's called the scripture of yoga because it helps you to unite with the self. The scripture of yoga, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, it's given in the form of samvada between the Guru and Sishya, Sri Krishna and Arjuna. Ends the 14th chapter entitled Yoga of Distinction of the Three Gunas. We have now concluded chapter 14. What does it mean? It means we have gone through the shlokas, but it doesn't mean that we have understood the chapter fully. We need to study the chapter. We should have the humility to believe that we have just started the chapter. There's a long way to go. So we follow a ritual of chanting shloka number 1 to remind us of this fact, of this chapter, of any chapter when we conclude it. So let's chant shloka number 1 of chapter 14.
श्रीभगवानुवाच परं भूयः प्रवक्ष्यामि ज्ञानानां ज्ञानमुत्तमं यज्ञात्वा मुनयः सर्वे परां सिद्धिमितो गताः
Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti.